preparing.
Okay, it says live on YouTube now. Here.
Setting up your meeting. Done.
So we are good. We are live, but
Preparing.
okay, it says live on YouTube now.
Yeah. No, and it's there's like a delay, but it's fine.
How do you see it on the main page, Fatima?
We are live, but sorry, I need to turn the YouTube one off because
I'm trying to figure that out.
So it's working. It's going now. It's on. It's live. They can hear us our little chit chat, but who cares?
We just need to find the link on the YouTube page.
So mine's working. Like I'm watching it right now as we speak with like a 20-second delay. Like I have YouTube open in a separate window and I can see it live. So it's live. Let me
Your Majesty, Mr. President, distinguished heads of state.
See that's the link. If you click on that, it should take you to it. It's live.
Yeah, but what we shared is the link to the main page, so we should find a way from there. I think it has to be featured on the page. Fatima, I just sent you a link. Any luck, Fatima?
No, I'm still trying to figure this out.
Did you see what I sent you?
Yeah.
Eric, who decides what to show in that live stream? I see it's a zoom on the speaker. Is that the only setting, or?
Yeah, there's only two settings: speaker or gallery.
Should we do gallery?
I mean, gallery is okay, but the problem then is like when we actually have the formal meeting.
Mm-hmm.
Like you get the full screen of everyone, and often people are kind of like, you know, on their phone, not paying attention. Like,
but it gives a bit more the impression that it's a meeting, right?
Yeah, no, I mean, I'm totally happy to make a gallery. I mean, right now, there it's the two of us, but
yeah. Let's do gallery.
All right, gallery it is.
Thanks. Fatima, if it doesn't work, I'll just send an email with the link saying this is the link.
Yeah,
to,
let me just check some more, and if I do manage to change it, then I'll let you know. Yeah.
Okay.
It shouldn't be that difficult. Yeah.
What's the name of the Somali ambassador again?
I don't remember.
'Cause somebody's in the waiting room. It's His Excellency.
We have a few excellencies already, yeah.
So it looks like it's one of the ambassadors or maybe a minister.
Yeah, let's give Fatima another 5 minutes, and then at
Yeah,
45 maybe we'll let everyone in.
Very good.
Okay. Paolo, do you see it now?
No.
Okay, so Eric, actually, he's linked to our United Nations Peacebuilding Support Office YouTube channel, not the Peacebuilding YouTube channel. So on the Peacebuilding Support Office, it shows at the top our video.
Okay, no, we need. Can we link it to the UN Peacebuilding?
We can't link it. We'll have to change the settings in the Zoom account.
Okay.
Yeah, that's the problem actually.
Can you put a link in the peace building one so that it links to the peace building support one?
Yeah, okay, I'll try to do that.
It's okay, Fatima. If it's difficult, I'll because we need to let people in. I can send an email with the correct link to the live stream that Eric posted in the chat. So let's not switch off the live stream now. We continue.
Okay.
And that link is still valid, right, Eric?
Okay. Yeah.
Yep. It's still playing as we speak.
Okay. So I will send an email reminding the link to join the meeting on Zoom and the correct link to watch the live stream of the meeting on YouTube. And then okay, I'm sending the email now, and then we let everyone in.
Okay.
Okay, admitting all.
Okay.
هاي مسك ما مقلصة
cabdiqani si fiican kuu maqla
هاي كورن كلر كوضع يا هوشي سنة
okay waayo ani ma ii jeeda
كوتشي ده لكن واحد مودا كاميرا ده إنك كفوك هاي
sima soo sameyn okay samaan saar
اوكي
okay bas خلاص ay 10 daqiiqo kadib baa la soo galaa cabdiqani u taskareena
Mr. Swan, good afternoon. This is Paul Fontana from PBSO New York. Can you hear me well?
Yes, I hear you well. Can you hear me?
Perfect. Thank you very much.
Okay, lovely.
And
Thanks.
other colleagues in Mogadishu, Excellencies, can you hear as well?
We can hear you well.
Thank you, Excellency.
Good morning.
Good morning, Ambassador.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning, Bob. Good morning, Bob. Good to see you.
Morning. We think we're ready to start?
Good morning.
Morning.
Prime Minister, thank you for joining us. We're very grateful for your presence, and I'll be calling on you in just a minute. Colleagues, if I may begin, I want to welcome everyone, which is, as you know, and we call it an informal meeting of the Peacebuilding Commission. We're going to be discussing the situation in Somalia today, and we're very, very grateful for the number of participants in the call. I think it reflects the importance that we attach to the discussion. I will, as we do in these meetings, go over a few housekeeping matters. We are, as you know, we're normally open to observers, so we're going to be live streaming this session on YouTube. We're also recording the meeting, and we will post the recording to the website of the Peacebuilding Commission. I'd like to remind you all to sign in with your name and mission affiliation, and to keep your microphones off mute if you're not speaking. Once the briefers have concluded their presentations, we will open the floor to member states. The speakers list is now open, and I kindly request all missions to use the chat function to request the floor. I'm pleased to note we're joined by a number of senior representatives from capitals, and we're going to be inviting them to speak first, followed by countries from the region. That's all the good news. The bad news is there are so many people who are here today that we're going to have to restrict the timing of the interventions. I'd like to remind briefers to keep your remarks as concise as possible. Prime Minister, I'm a former politician and you are a current one, so I know this is difficult for both of us, but we need to try to keep the timing in mind. I'm going to request that member states limit your interventions to no more than 2 or 3 minutes, which is short. But as I've said on other occasions, President Lincoln's most famous speech, the Gettysburg Address, was clocked in at 2 minutes, 44 seconds. So people are still reading it and thinking about it. So I ask you all to reflect on that example. Colleagues, we're very delighted to welcome Somalia back to the PBC. The meeting takes place at a crucial juncture in Somalia's peace and state building process. The country is preparing for elections. And next year, we're going to see the anticipated drawdown of the African Union mission. Despite enormous challenges after decades of conflict and the virtual collapse of the state, Somalia has made very significant progress in security sector and governance reforms, as well as in public financial management reforms, although these have been made much more difficult by the outbreak of COVID. Earlier this year, Somalia qualified for debt forgiveness under what's known as HIPPI, the Heavily Indebted Poor Countries Initiative. There's also been progress in developing a new national reconciliation framework and the adoption last year of the Somali Women's Charter, which affirms women as equal partners working for peace and political processes, and calls, and I'm quoting here, for the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Somalia to enshrine the unconditional commitment to gender equality, human rights, and the empowerment of women. In 2019, Somalia articulated its peacebuilding and sustainable development agenda in the 9th National Development Plan for 2020 to 2024, which recognizes that peacebuilding and reconciliation must be grounded in the political context, built on existing national institutions, and strengthen national capacities for peace. However, as we heard in the Security Council briefing on November 23rd, significant challenges remain in planning for the elections and security transition, and in translating the commitments enshrined in the Somali Women's Charter into tangible improvements in the full, equal, and meaningful participation of women. Given these developments, today's discussion will be an opportunity to receive an update on progress and challenges related to these ongoing reforms, and also identify how the Peacebuilding Commission can support Somalia in delivering on the peace-building priorities which have been established. We have a number of very distinguished briefers, and I will name them, and then I'll come back to call on the Prime Minister. We're welcoming His Excellency, Mr. Mohammed Hussein Roble, who is the Prime Minister of the Federal Republic of Somalia. Prime Minister, you are welcome, and we are greatly honored by your presence today. The Prime Minister will be followed by Her Excellency, Madam Hanifa Mohammed Ibrahim, the Minister of Women and Human Rights Development of the Federal Republic. Following remarks from the two representatives from the government, we'll hear from James Christopher Swan, who's the Special Representative of the SG for Somalia. I'd like to take this opportunity to thank Mr. Swan for his engagement in the lead up to this meeting and his very valuable briefings. Following the SRSG, we'll hear from Ms. Rauda Olad, who's a mental psychotherapist and peace builder. As the founder of Mandik Mental Health Without Borders, she's been working with the government and key actors throughout Somalia to integrate mental health and healing within the context of ongoing state building efforts. And finally, we're going to hear from Oscar Fernandez Taranco, who's the Assistant Secretary General for Peacebuilding Support. So, Prime Minister, the floor is yours. I'll then call on Minister Ibrahim and go down the list. As I said, we're very welcome. You're very welcome, Prime Minister. If I can just speak personally for a moment and say that I have the warmest personal attachment to your country. I had the opportunity as Premier of Ontario to welcome many, many Somali refugees to our country between 1990 and 1995. And I have retained a very strong interest in what is going on in your country. And I had the opportunity of meeting a number of political leaders from your country at a conference organized by the Forum of Federations in Nairobi just a few short years ago. So I look forward very much to hearing from you and just want you to know how much you're welcome in our midst. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Excellency. UN Peacebuilding Commission Chair, Bob Ray, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, wherever you are and whichever time you are in this moment. I'm greeting from Mogadishu, Somalia. First, I would like to congratulate the UN's 75th anniversary this year. It is 75 years since the Charter of the UN was established. Most nations of the world are enjoying freedom and progress. The UN has largely served as the independent organization developing and standing for international norms and law in Somalia. With the support of the international partners and the UN, we have made significant gain toward peace, security, and recovery. However, 3 decades of conflict and political instability need more solidarity and support. The importance of the UN mission and the interdependence of the world has been brought home even more by the COVID-19 and the realities of the climate emergency that we are all living today. These 2 global challenges and many more, including the dehumanizing poverty, conflict, and instability that many countries, including Somalia, face, affirm that no country is an island, but that we are all interconnected. I appreciate the Peacebuilding Commission Chair and member states for allowing Somalia to renew its partnership and cooperation of the Peacebuilding Commission. I acknowledge those Peacebuilding Commission member states who have already invested a lot in supporting our country's recovery process, and those who have ongoing partnerships and programs in the country, such as Friends of Reconciliation Group and AMISOM contributing countries. I would like to thank the international community for their continued support in economic recovery, infrastructure development, and security sector. I would like to acknowledge
there was a kind of so.
We'll wait to see if we can get the Prime Minister back online. I wonder if Minister.
Can I continue?
Yes, continue, Prime Minister. We
I would
welcome you
like
back.
Thank you. I would like to acknowledge the Peacebuilding Fund program that has become catalyst for peacebuilding interventions during the past years, and I would like to thank Peacebuilding Commission for supporting the renewal of eligibility for the coming 5 years. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, this meeting is part of the Somalia coming back to the international arena and fostering relationships with the international community. Somalia has achieved a lot in the past 10 years and made a lot of recovery and reform. Today, the federal and regional state institutions are restored and are functioning. Peace and security have improved throughout the country, and the growing service delivery is provided by the government to the people. We have resilient resources that we need to build on in restoring peace and prosperity to our people. We believe durable solutions are those resonating to our resilient resources that have endured throughout the conflict. Peace building cannot be imported, but can be brought about through the sustenance and reform of indigenous wisdoms, while learning and adopting good practice from other experiences. We have learned the hard way of being engulfed in conflict and trying quick fix solutions to restoring peace. We will strive to safeguard inclusive solutions that are Somalia-owned and grounded on local context and environment. Nevertheless, we need to benefit and learn from successful process of other countries that have effectively restored the law and order and trust between their communities, as well as rebuild their citizens' confidence in state institutions. We must continue to strengthen our newly formed governance institutions at all levels, federal member states, and district level. As we are recovering from protracted conflict, countries ready to adopt a strategic and coherent approach to peace building and enhance coordination of our national peace building process with the regional and international efforts. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, in our context, state building and peace building process are almost identical and the two sides of the same coin. These two processes are strongly interwoven and mutually reinforce each other in every aspect of our rebuilding and recovery. This is because our country experienced total collapse of the state and remained stateless for decades until we started recovering and restructuring the state in the last 10 years or so. Our peace building priorities and needs can be categorized under the three areas. Number one, state building, which includes rebuilding and strengthening government institutions, implementation of the federal system in all sectors of governance, decentralization through the formation of the district councils that take governance close to the citizens, building local governance capacities to delivering service, accelerating democratization process through elections at all levels, implement multi-party system, and establishing renewed positive relationship with the neighboring countries. The state building trajectory is guided by the constitutions which has been undergoing review. Number 2, reconciliation, which consists of A, reimagining and creating a common vision, restoring positive relationship between the Somali people. The relationships damaged by the prolonged conflict needs to be repaired through social integration, especially between youth. D, rebuilding people's trust and confidence in government institutions through the provision of justice to the society by strengthening justice infrastructure, expertise and technical capacities. Without the rule of law and functions court system, the legitimacy of the state will continue to be undermined. This reconciliation approach is elaborated in the National Reconciliation Framework, which was developed by the Somali people through the extensive consultation with all parties and sectors of the Somali society. This new process is context and gender sensitive. Somali women have suffered a lot in our conflict, but their resilience has withstood, and they have a lot to contribute in the envisioned genuine reconciliation process. Their wisdom has already outshined during the National Reconciliation Framework consultations and the symbol of Dab u Heshiisiin, which means true conciliation. And Han meaning the milk container. And it is a story which was contributed by our women has already inspired Somalis. We aim and commit to involve all sectors of society and provide space for everyone, including minorities. It is a long process and not a one-off project. Indeed, the new reconciliation we aim to venture can manifest the positive aspects of our conflict by transforming relationship, including creating more equal society and reducing marginalization of certain groups of our people. Number 3, economic reconstruction and recovery, where we need institutional building and reform, developing relevant policies and laws, construction of economic infrastructures, and promoting our productive sector. Sorry. We need to address the high unemployment rate, especially youth who make up more than 1/3 of the population. In all peace building and state building trajectories, gender, human rights, youth engagement, and conflict sensitivity are cross-cutting in all processes. Special commitment and attention to women empowerment is itself both aim and approach. Thus, a lens to every aspect of our rebuilding. The newly adopted Somali Women Charter outlines our women's resources and potentialities to contribute to peace building and recovery. Excellencies ladies and gentlemen, finally, I would like to reiterate our commitment to good governance, collaboration, and continuity of engagement with multilateral bodies such as Peacebuilding Commission. As part of our strategic commitment to peace building, we have recently established National Peacebuilding Coordination Unit in the Office of the Prime Minister that will streamline and coordinate peace building and reconciliation process throughout the country and coordinate the renewed engagement with the UN Peacebuilding Commission. As part of the implementation of long overdue national reconciliation process, we are making final preparation for launching national reconciliation process that will take our people to second level of increased social cohesion, healing, and renewal of hope for our people. And those will enhance our security and stability. I'm looking forward to the Peacebuilding Commission members collaboration and partnerships on realizing more peaceful Somali and the Horn at large. I thank you all for your kind attention. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Prime Minister. It's much appreciated. We value your contribution, and we look forward to a continuing partnership with your country as we face these challenges together. I think your message of solidarity and the fact that none of us are alone in facing these challenges and struggles is particularly important. Minister Ibrahim, you're most welcome.
And Your Excellency, Prime Minister of Somalia, and Your Excellency, Deputy Prime Minister of Somalia, Your Excellency, Mr. Bob Ray, Preeminent Representative of Canada to the United Nations and the Chair of Peacebuilding Commission, Your Excellency, Member of the Peacebuilding Commission, Your Excellency, SRSG, and member of the diplomatic groups, representative from civil society, and all protocol observed, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and very good evening to you all. It's my pleasure to take part in this virtual meeting of the Peacebuilding Commission on Somalia. I'm pleased to join the Prime Minister in sharing the progress Somalia has made in peacebuilding and women, peace and security agenda forward. On this 20th anniversary of UN Security Council Resolution 1325, women and girls still face many challenges. In Somalia, as we have seen elsewhere, the COVID-19 pandemic has affected women and girls more significantly, as we have seen more violence against them. Somalia is about to go through election. In the past weeks, I have been visited several federal state members to advocate and campaign for the 30% women quota. Women in Somalia have the right to be part of the political process. With the women part of the Somali leadership, we can rebuild peace and security in Somalia. After my visit to Southwest State and by my deputy visit to Hirshabelle and Galmudug State, I am now in Somali state of Puntland, where I have met the Puntland leadership, traditional elders, women rights group, and civil society organizations. We spoke about 30% quota and how we can ensure more women to get a seat in the parliament in 2021. After this, I will visit Jubaland in the coming days, inshallah. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, as Somalia continue to make a progress toward peace building with national reconciliation as one of the top priorities of the government, we are fully aware that the women peace and security agenda needs to remain priority. The path to peace and stability in Somalia has been difficult. However, Somali women have an important role in peace building and in the conflict prevention in Somalia. So Somali women are active peacemakers, mediators, and negotiators. The newly developed National Reconciliation Framework provides an opportunity to address the drivers of inequality and promote peace through the strengthening of Somali women, the strengthening of the role of Somali women. Through this NRF, the advancement of human rights and the women peace and security agenda, I'm confident that positive change for the lasting peace is possible. The Somalia-owned and led Somalia Women Charter adopted by the government provides the framework for women, peace and security. It outlines Somali women demands under each of the pillars of women, peace and security agenda. The charter outlines a vision in which women have equal participation in all political, economic, and social life. Additionally, in order to empower an even wider range of women to participate in articulation of women, peace, and security priorities, and to collect data to monitor progress, the ministry also led survey of over 10,000 women across Somalia earlier this year. The survey focused on giving a voice to those most vulnerable women. The finding of the survey and add weight to many of the priorities outlined in the Somali Women Charter. key example as we head into election, this is that the overwhelming majority of women who participated in the survey, 92% affirmed that they want more opportunities to participate in government and politics. One more vast majority, 86.6%, indicated that they would have more opportunities to access decision-making. If more decision-makers were women, this shows that 50% women quota called for by Somali women charters is an important end itself. I'm happy to share today that work has begun on the development of National Action Plan for the implementation of the UN Security Council Resolution 1325 on women, peace, and security. This work comes at a critical time for our country, where the provisional constitution of Somalia undergoing a review process. And as a key electoral security and political laws are being developed in the country. It also takes place during the upcoming election scheduled to take place in 2020-2021. We see this as a critical window of opportunity to advance gender equality. This is the further affirmed in the country National Development Plan 2020-2024. The federal government of Somalia recognized that peace, stability, and development can only be effectively achieved by addressing the challenges women face to fully contribute their country development agenda to their country development agenda 2030. UN Security Council Resolution 2282, UN Security Council Resolution 1325, and follow-up resolutions and other international agreements affirm that advancing women empowerment in conflict effected, setting in both key objectives in its own right and a precondition for sustainable peace and development. Finally, I'm convinced of the need for solid knowledge base, including statistics as a starting point for making informed decisions on policy and reforms on the important topic of women, peace and security, and development as outlined above. I'm happy to report that my ministry is contributing significantly in this area while collaborating with the Office of the National Statistics and other stakeholders. Indeed, when we know better, we can act better. I would like to the end by thanking all the members for their support to Somalia and to call for the leadership of this commission in addressing the women, peace and security agenda in Somalia and everywhere in the world. Thank you for your kind attention and thank you for your time.
Thank you very much, Minister. We really appreciate your presence today and your leadership. I can assure you that the issues that you are addressing with the participation of women are critically important for us. And we've attached a great deal of importance to it in all of our work throughout the world. So thank you so much for your presentation. We now have James Christopher Swan, the Special Representative of the SG for Somalia. Jim, you're on.
Mr. Chairperson, Excellencies, distinguished participants. First, thank you, Ambassador Ray of the Permanent Mission of Canada, for chairing this meeting dedicated to peace building in Somalia. And we're, of course, honored to have heard earlier from His Excellency, the Prime Minister, Her Excellency, the Minister of Women and Human Rights Development. And I'm also very much encouraged to see senior representatives from so many member states joining us. This is a sign of continued global interest in Somalia's peacebuilding project. In the 5 years since Somalia last engaged with the Peacebuilding Commission, the country has taken important strides on the path from conflict to peace. The United Nations remains committed to assist Somalia to overcome the remaining peace-building challenges that face the country, and we will walk that path to peace with Somalia. Mr. Chairperson, as you and others have noted, Somalia is at a delicate juncture as the country prepares for the next electoral process and an important security transition. In my briefing to the Security Council on the 23rd of November, I emphasized the importance of maintaining a spirit of dialogue and compromise in guiding the country through this important phase to ensure that Somalia remains on a positive trajectory. Despite impressive progress in addressing security threats, establishing the foundations for democracy, and rebuilding national institutions, many significant challenges still need to be faced head-on. In support of Somali peace-building priorities, the fund has played an important contributing and supporting role. To date, the Peacebuilding Fund has invested some $52 million in Somalia. This is a comparatively modest amount in view of overall needs and overall aid flows to Somalia. But this investment has had a focused strategic impact. The Peacebuilding Fund has channeled the collective expertise of the entire UN family in Somalia to overcome specific challenges through joined-up approaches. Examples include our support to local peace and reconciliation processes. It includes the ability to pilot new and innovative ideas, such as exploring the link between mental health and peace building. The fund has allowed us, and this approach has allowed us to ensure a close and deepening partnership with civil society actors on peace building objectives. Mr. Chairperson, on the 21st of July of this year, at the request of the Somali government, the Secretary General approved a new 5-year eligibility period for the Peacebuilding Fund in Somalia. 4 thematic priorities have been agreed: reconciliation, justice and the rule of law, security, and governance. We have also agreed on the overarching priority of women, peace, and security as defined in Security Council Resolution 1325. Women are historically underrepresented in formal peace processes around the world, and unfortunately often continue to be so today. Yet there is evidence time and time again of the critical role that women must play if we want peace to last. With this in mind, for the next 5 years, the Peacebuilding Fund intends to commit at least 50% of its resources in Somalia to the implementation of the Women, Peace and Security agenda. We strongly encourage other international partners to increase their support for this priority as well. We recall the compelling statement in the Somali Women's Charter, and I quote, "Without women's political participation, there can be no sustained peace and development." I would also like to highlight a point raised by the Prime Minister in his remarks, and that is the key role and critical importance of engaging the youth in confidence building and reconciliation processes and in pursuing and consolidating peace. With an estimated 73% of the population of Somalia under the age of 30 years, the youth, boys and girls, young men and women, will be the drivers of peace in Somalia. We must recognize their importance and invest in them today. In conclusion, and as we look ahead, I encourage sustained, flexible engagement between Somalia and the Peacebuilding Commission. I also encourage the Commission to reconvene regularly, if its members so choose, perhaps next year, to take stock of the situation following the electoral process, assess progress that's been made, and look at what remains to be done. The Peacebuilding Commission can help keep us all focused on key cross-cutting themes in Somalia, can help us mobilize resources for peace building, and it can support partnerships between Somalia and other countries that have experiences to share. Building and sustaining peace is a collective effort, and I thank all of you for coming together today to join in this endeavor. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much, Jim. It's very good to hear from you. Much appreciated. And obviously a real addition to our understanding of this process. You mentioned mental health, and we're delighted to have a mental health practitioner with us, Rauda Olad, who's on the ground and very much involved in the efforts to understand better the mental health issues. And we're delighted to have you with us. Rauda.
Greetings of peace, Your Excellency Prime Minister Roble, and Deputy Prime Minister, Honorable Minister Hanifa, dignitaries, ambassadors, and ladies and gentlemen. My name is Rauda Olat, and I am the founder of Mandek Mental Health, an organization that works in the intersection of mental health and peace building in conflict-affected societies. In addition to my clinical work and community engagement, I am working on a guidebook on mental health in peace building practice as part of my fellowship at Mary Hawk Center at George Mason University in Washington, D.C. I am honored to join you from Mogadishu to offer my perspective on the role of civil society in peace building, meaningful political participation for women, and to call for more attention to psychosocial effects of conflicts on populations and its impact on peace building. With the election approaching, the role of civil society is critical to ensure peaceful elections and for the public to remain focused on not reversing the progress made so far. The civil society groups recently issued a statement expressing concerns about political rhetoric that possibility that a disputed election could be followed by violence. The Somali people are hopeful, cherish the progress made, and my hometown Mogadishu is reclaiming its past while looking to the future, with the new buildings, shops, coffee shops opening up previously war-torn neighborhoods. Across the country, people are eager to enjoy the tranquility that our hard-won peace has offered. I recently overheard a conversation, very interesting conversation, between two young men in Mogadishu talking about the upcoming elections, expressing the sentiment of many when agreeing that we don't care who becomes the next president. We want to have nabad and dowladnimo wanaagsan, peace and governance. The public fatigue with the public fatigue with the conflict is what should inspire us all. Support that and allow for voices like mine to be heard by decision makers. Somalia's National Reconciliation Framework, NRF, has the potential to ensure future peace building and reconciliation activities in Somalia that are truly Somali-led, Somali-owned, and provide for civil society engagement in otherwise a dominated process. My remarks will be very brief, and regarding to women, Minister Hanifa already addressed the challenges and opportunity facing Somali women, but I want to highlight the structural violence women regularly deals with. The structural violence includes both discursive and physical violence. I need to highlight that discursive include a pattern of behaviors accepted as a normal, nonetheless harmful in terms of the ways of talking about the role of women in the society and political participation. For instance, seats allocated for female candidates are regarded lost by many community members, effectively denying the agency of women to represent their communities. Such a discourse also creates psychological impacts and emotional distress for Somali women who struggle to claim the legitimacy. In addition to psychological violence, women encounter potential and actual physical violence threats for seeking political influence and other physical violence, including sexual violence. Somali women are breadwinner of most of families. Somali women are natural-born marriers transcending the division in the Somali community. Our potential is limitless. Our intentions are peaceful, and we demand our space, and we deserve more support. In conclusion, I would like to remind my government and Somali international partners that this is a country that has suffered more than the most, and that the Somali people deal with invisible wounds of conflict. Mental health problems are widespread and overlooked often. Unaddressed, undiagnosed trauma might be the underlying issue that situates young people to join terror organizations or commit violence acts as they have been raised in the midst of conflict, which has shaped their lives. And that is the reality, some of the cases that I have seen. Somalia has only one rehabilitation program that has fully integrated mental health services for high-risk inmates in Double Central Prison and implemented by Finchurch 8. In addition to this, the Peacebuilding Fund supports a pilot project on the link between mental health and peace building. This is really encouraging, and I want to highlight and encourage mental health to be an integral component of peace building, reconciliation efforts, and as a method of prevention, disengagement, and reintegration by rehabilitation of young men, women who grew up in conflict and have experienced traumatic events, which recognized also, which is good news, also it's recognized on National Reconciliation Framework. I really thank you to hear from Prime Minister Roble for highlighting the healing this nation needs. And I am really thankful, and I thank Somali government for this opportunity. I commend Somali international partners for solidarity and support to our government. Thank you so much, and I am very happy to listen.
Thank you, Rhoda, very much for your presentation. I think we really appreciate it, and all of us, I think, understand the critical role that mental health plays, and particularly the role that it plays with respect to appreciating and understanding the vital role that the women are playing in your society, as in all societies, and the challenge we face in creating greater equality. So, Oscar, over to you now to take us into the broader discussion.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, for organizing this important meeting at the request of the government of Somalia. And I would also like to add my voice of welcome to His Excellency, the Prime Minister, Mohamed Hussein Roble, Her Excellency, Minister Hanifa Mohamed Ibrahim, Mrs. Rhoda Olad, the Mental Health and Peacebuilding Practitioner, and my colleague, SRSG, James Swan, and thank them all for their very insightful briefings. This meeting today demonstrates our renewed and strong partnerships for prevention and peace building in Somalia. And it demonstrates, the engagement of this commission. And actually, following Somalia's peace building funds re-eligibility approval by the Secretary General, which happened in July of this year, this meeting is particularly important to actually set the tone for the future programming. Just to recall that an independent evaluation of the PBF's support to Somalia that was mentioned by SRSG Swan documented actually how the Peacebuilding Fund filled the critical gaps in peace building, helped unblock political processes, and promoted joint programming among UN agencies and between UN agencies and other partners. And through its catalytic investments and piloting of new initiatives, it actually helped leverage additional resources to a ratio of 1:6 in additional funding mobilized. As part of this comprehensive and inclusive eligibility process to access the Secretary General's Peacebuilding Fund this year, more than 400 Somalis were engaged, as well as over 70 stakeholders from the government, the civil society, the international community, to collectively identify those 4 critical priority areas for the forthcoming PBF programming in the areas of reconciliation, justice and rule of law, security and governance, with women and young people's indispensable role in peace building as a cross-cutting priority. So I would like to, commend the people and the government of Somalia for reaching this very important step and for pointing with clarity to where the Peacebuilding Commission could help mobilize more international support to peace building and state building in Somalia for the next 5 years. The additional resources for peace building in areas prone to inter-clan conflict and institution building for justice, rule of law, and security will be essential to help consolidate Somalia's gains. In this regard, the new National Reconciliation Framework provides a very promising blueprint for a participatory and inclusive approach to reconciliation in Somalia. I commend therefore the Ministry of Women and Human Rights for its strenuous efforts for women's protection and empowerment. While women's political participation has registered improvement, much more remains to be done to consolidate the progress and promote gender equality and empowerment. Women and girls constitute the majority of Somalia's 2.6 million IDPs, and internally displaced persons, with conflict disproportionately affecting women and youth. Progress in Somalia requires, as the Prime Minister, the Minister, and all the previous speakers said, a meaningful participation of women and youth in government institutions, as well as conflict prevention and the peace processes, including through direct support to women-led and youth-led initiatives that aim to promote social protection, social cohesion, counter violence, extremism, and radicalization, and offer livelihood opportunities. The government's openness towards broad and inclusive dialogue as a means for consensus building on issues of national interest, including the ongoing efforts to develop a detailed transition plan for the security sector, is equally important. And the United Nations family will remain committed to supporting this dialogue and accompanying the people and government of Somalia in their sustained peace building and state building efforts, together with all partners present here today. I also, if I may, Mr. Chair, just highlight Somalia's parallel efforts to continue its public financial reforms that enable the country to reach the World Bank and IMF HIPC decision point on debt relief earlier this year, and continue on the path towards HIPC completion point to achieve relief for its remaining external debt of some US $3.9 billion. Here, I wish to recognize and welcome the very strong partnership between the United Nations and the World Bank in Somalia, which has been a factor enabling both organizations to deliver more effectively on national priorities across humanitarian, development, peace-building nexus, from action to prevent famine and fostering resilience in areas affected by flooding, to supporting Somali's authorities towards a digital ID scheme that will help improve public financial management and access to services, including for women and young people. Furthermore, the UN and the World Bank have committed to put an emphasis on gender equality and women empowerment in every aspect of our joint engagement. This is a solid example of the innovation and synergy that can come from working together. And this, of course, becomes even more important as the World Bank's investment in Somalia will grow in the coming years. The UN remains committed to the country partnership platforms, the Somali Development and Reconstruction Facility, the SDRF, and the Mutual Accountability Framework, the MAF, to encourage all partners to reinforce their engagement. So in conclusion, I just wish to thank this commission for helping to ensure that Somalia receives the attention and support that it deserves. I strongly encourage immediate and sustained support for the priorities articulated here today at Somalia's request. And once again, I thank Prime Minister Roble and Minister Ibrahim for your clear explanation of the need for urgent action to help the people of Somalia. And I thank you, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Oscar. Great work as always. Colleagues, we have a full plate. We have 6 representatives from Capital. We have 7 PRs, and we have 8 DPRs and other experts. So you can see our problem. If everyone is relatively brief, succinct, and engaged, we can get there. Our first speaker is Kai Sauer, who's from Finland, effectively the Deputy Foreign Minister, We're delighted to have you, Mr. Sauer, and we look forward to your comments.
Thank you, Ambassador. Mr. Chair, I try to follow your marching orders. Excellencies, dear friends, good evening from Helsinki, Finland, another country which is hosting a significant Somali community. And I would like to thank the distinguished previous speakers for their informative briefings. As the co-chair of the group of Friends of Reconciliation for Somalia, peace building in Somalia is something that Finland follows very, very closely. We are especially pleased to see the focus on the role of women in peace building, and for the national reconciliation process to be sustainable, it must include women, youth, and marginalized groups. The implementation of the Somali Women's Charter is critically important. Having supported the drafting of the National Reconciliation Framework, Finland remains committed to supporting its implementation in an inclusive national reconciliation process. The strength of the National Reconciliation Framework lies in it being a Somali-owned document based on inclusive consultations. This forms the basis for a Somali-led reconciliation process. At the same time, it remains critical to secure international support for the process. Key objectives of the National Reconciliation Framework include enhanced social cohesion and strengthened trust between the citizens and the state. Accountable and transparent state building, rule of law, and human rights need to be supported. Furthermore, political dialogue and cooperation and high-level agreement on power and resource sharing is critical. In the coming months, we are expecting a period of political transition in Somalia due to the upcoming elections. We hope that the Peacebuilding Commission continues this useful discussion on peace building in Somalia and that reconciliation remains a high priority. Continued efforts for reconciliation and peace building are key to fostering stability and development, not just in Somalia, but in the wider region. Finland stands ready to support this process also in the future. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Kai. Very much appreciated, and let your succinct, focused comments be a model for all of the subsequent speakers. Thank you very much for your presentation.
Thank you.
We now have Emanuela from Italy, Emanuela Del Rey. Emanuela, you're welcome. We're very informal here.
Thank you, Chair. Dear friends, in light of the traditional relations of friendship between Rome and Mogadishu, Somalia holds, as you know, a very special place in the historic Italian engagement in the Horn of Africa, which is also a strategic region for us. In view of the upcoming elections, considering the overall scenario, we are pleased with the outcomes of the Dusa-Mareb third process that will at least provide more political representation compared to 2016. In this moment, we deem crucial to keep fostering greater dialogue between all relevant Somali stakeholders, especially between the central government and federal member states. Regarding the security situation, the handover of security responsibilities from AMISOM to the Somali security forces will be assessed realistically and carefully based on the conditions on field. Al-Shabaab and Daesh remain an actual threat. Italy is strongly committed to peace and security in Somalia through our training of Somali police forces, as well as our participation in the 3 EU missions: UNAFOR, Atlanta, EUCAP Somalia, and UTM Somalia, where we provide the commanding officer since 2014. Italy fully welcomes Somalia's efforts for the fruitful re-engagement with the international financial institutions and encourages the UN and the World Bank to further strengthen their partnership with Mogadishu, as this will allow for a better coordination among all relevant partners and contribute to mobilizing support to Somalia's social and economic priorities. We believe the PBC can play an important role in this by working closely with IFIs. Another good news is the advancement of the Somali economic reform agenda and the achievement of the decision point for the heavily in-debt poor countries, as well as last March, the related multilateral agreement reached within the Paris Club. Italy proudly contributed to this important endeavor through a bridge loan, and I can confirm that we will grant relief for 100% of bilateral sovereign debt, equivalent to almost 500 million euros. Italy is committed to supporting Somalia and implementing the 9th National Development Plan through the important initiatives of our development cooperation. I am really glad that the development cooperation framework agreement between Italy and Somalia is soon to be finalized. In Somalia, as I said, a priority country also for our development cooperation, we are focused on preventing humanitarian crises, also by tackling food insecurity, supporting the initiatives in the health sector, strengthening good governance, the rule of law and institutional capacities, investing in human capital and creating the conditions for a more inclusive economic growth. We believe in the strategic importance of ensuring high quality and inclusive education for the Somali youth. In this spirit, the Italian cooperation has supported the Somali National University since 1969. We would like to increase our funding and to involve other donors in the restructuring of the university campus in the framework of the upcoming SNU Donor Conference to be held in Mogadishu on the 7th of December. I hope, sincerely hope, that other countries and organizations will join Italy in supporting a valuable state institution that is a strategic asset to help Somalia's socio-economic recovery. Of course, the Somali National University is also fundamental to promote women empowerment and gender equality. When looking beyond COVID-19, especially in the post-COVID phase, we must not lose sight on the leadership that women can provide, especially in peace building. In this sense, we deem of the utmost importance the implementation of the Agenda on Women, Peace and Security in line with Resolution 1325, as well as the Youth, Peace and Security Agenda, of course. Italy supports the new National Reconciliation Framework and the Somali Women's Charter that, together with the National Youth Policy, are very encouraging signs of Somalia's positive step towards a more inclusive society. At the same time, ahead of the upcoming elections, we consider of the utmost importance that the 30% women representation in the House of People is guaranteed. In conclusion, I would like to reiterate Italy's strong commitment to supporting Somalia, also in the important context of the Peacebuilding Commission and the Peacebuilding Fund. We are obviously looking forward to engaging in more meetings like this in the near future. Thank you all.
Thank you, Emanuela. Marte Zielkowski from Norway.
Thank you, Bob. Let me start by thanking Somali Prime Minister Mohamed Hussein Roble and the other presenters. We value the opportunity to discuss how we can enhance the role of women in peace building in Somalia. We've taken note of the Women's Charter for Somalia and are pleased to see that it is part of the agenda for our meeting today. This ambitious document shows the strong investment of Somali women in enhancing the rights of women and girls, and we all need to step up our support. When Norway takes our seat as an elected member of the UN Security Council from January next year, women, peace and security will be one of our main priorities. The priorities and concern of Somali women will help us to guide us in this work. The agreed Somali electoral model falls short of Somali's own ambitions of holding one person, one vote elections. Nonetheless, it will be a step in the right direction if the government demonstrates its political commitment towards genuine democratic elections in 2024-2025. In this regard, we hope that the Somali government also will stand by its commitment to guarantee 30% women's representation in both the Electoral Committee as well as the Parliament. We appreciate that the Prime Minister in his statement showed a clear commitment to including women and minorities as we move forward. Genuine reconciliation is the basis for democratic development. The The adoption of the National Reconciliation Framework in 2019 is a milestone in this regard. Norway is proud to have supported activities that made the development of the NRF an inclusive process. Looking forward, the process would benefit from a close partnership between all levels of government and civil society, including religious leaders, women leaders, youth, and the business community. Norway will continue to support reconciliation and dialogue on legitimate governance structures for Somalia through the UN Multi-Partner Trust Fund, with support to the implementation of the NRF. This will also include support for the development and operationalization of federal member states' reconciliation plans. Peace and security are a prerequisite for development and democratization. It is vital that Somalia's capacity to maintain its own security is strengthened, and that the international community also supports an approach that addresses the need for political solutions. Norway was honored to take part in the extensive coordinated operation to clear Somalia's arrears to the multilateral finance institutions, in our case, the World Bank's IDA, through a bridge loan. Reaching the HIPC decision point is a key step towards achieving sustainable and durable economic growth. Looking forward, we hope to see increased investments in health, education, and social services. We encourage Somalia to continue to maintain a strong focus on reaching the completion point in 2023. We see Somalia's re-engagement with global financial institutions as an opportunity to provide support for your efforts to achieve economic and social recovery. Norway is pleased that women, peace and security is a cross-cutting issue in the interventions of the Peacebuilding Fund. There is a need to do more to integrate this agenda in efforts to build peace in Somalia. We have taken note of positive results at the local level. For example, the district of Dinsor achieved almost 50% women's representation in the district council election earlier this year. Let me commend the Prime Minister, Minister Hanifa Ibrahim, for your continuous efforts and for keeping up a strong momentum in this regard. We would like to encourage the Somali government, the UN system and other international partners to give even greater priority to this agenda in the years to come. Let me end by commending Somalia and the Somali government for its steadfast commitment to implementing a tough reform agenda and reaching agreed performance targets. As the Prime Minister said, in this context, peace building and state building is indeed two sides of the same coin. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Marta. Colleagues, I'm going to do something out of protocol. I've had a request from Qatar to move up, which I'm going to accede to. Alia, you're on next. If you can, just briefly come in. And then we'll turn to Per Olsen. So just hang on.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chairman, and thank you for giving me the floor. Earlier, I would like to of course, join my colleagues in welcoming His Excellency, the Prime Minister of Somalia, Mr. Mohammed Hussein Roble, the distinguished ministers and distinguished speakers. Of course, the State of Qatar has been an international partner of Somalia, and we contributed significant humanitarian and development assistance, and we are keen to see this brotherly country forge its way ahead in building peace and development. We welcome, of course, the engagement of the Peacebuilding Commission with Somalia. We believe that Somalia needs all the support from the different agencies of the United Nations, especially as it faces existing and new challenges like the risks and effects of the COVID-19 pandemic. Qatar has partnered and coordinated with the UN in providing support to Somalia, where applicable, of course. As we discuss Somalia's peace-building efforts, the security environment is an unavoidable backdrop. Therefore, there is a need for building the Somali security sector and ensuring the sufficient human and material resources, as well as competency and professionalism. This is especially important as assessment of international support for the security environment post-2021 is being undertaken. In recognition, of course, of the need to build the abilities of the Somali state security institutions, Qatar has provided aid, including dozens of armored vehicles last year, following notification, of course, to the Security Council Committee on Somalia. National reconciliation and accord among the different components of a country emerging from conflict is always crucial, and whether to avoid a relapse into violence or as an indispensable condition for the peace-building process. In fact, part of the financial support by the state of Qatar to Somalia went to the UN Trust Fund for Peace and Reconciliation in Somalia. We therefore encourage the initiative of the federal government of Somalia to launch the National Reconciliation Framework. One way we as international partners could help in this regard is by enabling funding from the UNDP Multi-Partner Trust Fund for the initiative, in addition to the Peace Building Fund. Similarly, the importance of free, transparent, and credible elections cannot be overstated. The state of Qatar has contributed, of course, to the Multi-Partner Trust Fund in support of holding the elections. I join others, of course, on the key importance of the participation of women in all spheres of life in Somalia, and I want to also join others in welcoming the recognition of this fact by the federal government of Somalia. Mr. Chairman, I will stop here, and we look forward, of course, to engaging in similar meetings in the future. Thank you again for giving me the floor earlier.
Thank you, Alia. We appreciate it. Per Olsen-Fried from Sweden.
Well, thank you, Chair. Thank you for convening this meeting. I think last time Somalia was discussed in the PBC in 2015, Sweden had the honor to chair, and we are indeed happy to participate here today as well. Thank you to Prime Minister Roble and to Minister Ibrahim for briefing us today. Thank you, of course, also to ASG Fernandez Taranco, SRC Swan, and Ms. Rhoda Olad, and to previous speakers. We align ourselves with the statement that will be made on behalf of the European Union. But also from the perspective of Sweden, Somalia is a close partner and a friend. Our bilateral ties are strong, not least thanks to the big Somali diaspora forming a vibrant part of Swedish civil society. Our development cooperation, our bilateral development cooperation with Somalia is one of Sweden's biggest partnerships. So for the purpose of today's discussion, let me highlight just 4 points. I'll try to be brief because some of them have already been mentioned as well. First, I also want to begin by stressing the important role by that women play in evolving Somali democracy. Women as right holders, as representatives, political actors, and agents of change in Somalia, including as promoters of peace, as peace builders, should be at the center of our efforts. Second, reconciliation is an ongoing task for Somalia in building and sustaining peace. It faces immense challenges, but there are also opportunities. The National Reconciliation Framework that previous speakers have mentioned as well is key for continued dialogue and conflict resolution at local, at state, and at federal level. Although also Sweden, we are disappointed that the one person, one vote formula will not be applied in the federal elections. The Dushmareb process leading up to an FGS-FMS election agreement show that when working together, peaceful solutions can be reached. In Galkayu, decades of conflict have been replaced by joint efforts to realize peace and state building. Now, in other areas, challenges remain apparent. Gedo in Jubaland is a case in point, showing the need for an overarching reconciliation process across Somalia. Now, third, financing for peace building is also a fundamental challenge, and Somalia is no exception to this. In this regard, Sweden is committed to promote good peace building donorship. We need predictable, flexible, and long-term funding through core contributions and increased volumes, including to the UN Peacebuilding Fund, but we also need to ensure that the bank's FCV strategy is fully implemented. Good peacebuilding donorship also includes ensuring more cooperation and coherent approaches within and between donors and international financial institutions to foster synergies across our different funding instruments that we have at our hands. Now, fourth, peacebuilding efforts must address the multidimensional nature of Somalia's challenges. The Peacebuilding Fund can also play an important role in this regard, including in supporting a process towards democratic elections. And as well, we need to recognize the immense challenges faced due to the COVID-19 pandemic. The adverse effects of climate change are also apparent, of course, in Somalia. Recurring floods and droughts worsen an already dire humanitarian situation, underlining the need to strengthen resilience, adaptation, and to work for a more sustainable development. Finally, the PBC, I think, should be a platform for Somalian representatives to share experiences and to learn and exchange advice with other key actors, including regional organizations and financial institutions. We appreciate the work within the Friends of the Reconciliation Group in Somalia in preparations for this meeting. I think it has connected the field with our headquarters in a very productive way and could serve as an inspiration also for other PBC discussions and conversations. To conclude, Chair, we are very pleased that we've had this first exchange with Somalia, and I hope that this will form the basis for further meetings and engagements in the PBC. Thank you again to everyone contributing to this meeting, and back to you, Chair. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Per Olsen, for very, very thoughtful remarks, and I think we're going to take you up on a number of your points. I think we do have to think about how we can productively work with capitals and here in New York and Geneva and elsewhere. I think it's very important we do that. And we have an opportunity now to do it. And secondly, to say to our Somali friends, we look forward to visiting. You know, we're living in a strange time when we can't travel, but that won't last forever. And we very much want to be able to visit and participate with our friends in Somalia. Philip Ackermann from Germany.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you and Prime Minister Roble and Minister Habzadeh for the briefings. You were right when you said we would like to visit. And I hope you are right when you say it won't last forever and we will be able to visit soon.
Oh, I know I'm right. I know I'm right.
I think we do welcome Somalia's request for this meeting, which highlights Somalia's commitment to peace and security. And while there is still much to be done, we also appreciate that Somalia took this opportunity to share with us its experience of peace building, a particularly valuable insight for this commission. Let me start by saying a couple of sentences on Somalia, on progress and challenges in Somalia. I think over the last years, we have to state that Somalia has made important steps to achieve progress on stabilization, recovery, and reconciliation on all levels, local, regional, and national, as a basis for sustainable peace. We have seen clear Somali leadership and ownership in the field of economic reforms, leading the country successfully towards the decision point for the HIPC debt relief process. It is very positive that political dialogue between the federal government of Somalia and federal member states has been restored and has led to a consensus on the upcoming elections. We hope that consensus can now also be achieved to reach tangible progress in other fields, such as the constitutional review process and the security sector reform. Unfortunately, and it has been said before, conflict and violence are still part of daily life for too many in Somalia. We therefore commend the efforts of that Somalia has made on the ongoing review of the Somalia transition plan on its path to gradually assume security responsibility. A continuous strengthening of the Somali security forces to protect its own population has to go hand in hand with a broad political consensus, with the strengthening of the justice system, good governance, and the rule of law. Now, my second point, Mr. Chair, is the point of inclusivity, and we have talked before about including women in the political process, and I was listening carefully to what Minister Habzadeh said. I think we are convinced that women have to play a vital role in reconciliation, peace building, and reconstruction. This requires an engaged leadership. And as one example, I would like to mention Ms. Ilwat Elman from the Elman Peace Center in Somalia. She has deeply impressed us and received the German Africa Award a few weeks ago for her work and dedication for reconciliation, empowering marginalized and the most vulnerable of society, working with child soldiers, victims of sexual violence and abuse in Somalia. This support from engaged leadership extends from engaged leadership to marginalized women in society. To promote the inclusion of women in peace processes, we have been supporting the reintegration of women formerly associated with Al-Shabaab since the beginning of this year. To empower women and contribute to sustainable peace building, we consider of utmost importance that female participation in politics on all levels is guaranteed, and that the 30% female quota, it has been mentioned before, the Parliament has endorsed for the upcoming elections is fully implemented. Now let me say a word on Germany's support. We are a long-standing partner of Somalia, contributing to the joint efforts towards crisis prevention, stabilization, and peace building. To this end, we have regularly contributed to the multi-partner trust fund of UNDP for Somalia for activities and programs aiming at developing federalism and fostering democratic processes in the country. We also assist Somalia in its endeavor to reform the security sector, especially through our support to the Somali police and to DDR programs working with former Al-Shabaab members. Another focus of our bilateral engagement is mediation support and support for dialogue processes which directly contribute to reconciliation efforts in Somalia. And finally, Germany is also one of the biggest donors of the Peacebuilding Fund. In 2019, Germany contributed 40 million euros. We welcome that the PBF currently supports projects in Somalia in the field of inclusion of youth in peacebuilding and projects to strengthen women's role and participation in peacebuilding. So let me conclude, Mr. Chairman, by saying that we applaud Somalia's progress in the past years and trust that today serves as an important impulse for further development in the future to overcome remaining challenges. Germany, together with its partners, stands ready to support Somalia in this process. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Philip. Much appreciated. Lotte Matchon from Denmark.
Thank you so much, chairs, excellencies, colleagues, and friends. It's really a pleasure to be with you today from Copenhagen, where it's cold and dark, and I must say the only light so far is coming from this meeting, which is due to your constructive interventions, all of you. We are happy to participate in the meeting today and be able to share our views on progress and challenges in Somalia, and for the fact that Somalia has requested themselves to come back to the Peacebuilding Commission. Denmark is a long-standing partner with Somalia with a comprehensive engagement, and I've had the opportunity to visit many times before and really looking forward, as has been mentioned, to do this so again. As noted in the UNSCR 2520, only real political progress can bring about a sustainable solution to Somalia's instability and realize the objective that we all share. I believe that Somalia is carrying the main responsibility of its own security. And against that background, we do really recommend or comment Somalia for its progress on development, reconciliation, the Somali Women's Charter, and similar policy documents. They really signal this strong dedication to inclusivity, representation, and reconciliation that are essential for real political progress and peace building. And in that regard, I mean, that we are here today is really a testament to Somalia's successful re-engagement with the international community that we have also witnessed in relation to the IFIs and the debt relief that Denmark is also happy to contribute to. I would like to focus mainly on the women's rights issue that has also been called for by previous speakers, and not least also from Somalia civil society. Denmark has been partner to the Somali Ministry for Women and Human Rights Development for several years, and we have seen impressive results. To mention but a few, that Somalia has started to re-engage with international treaty bodies, drafting key legislation, improving the rights of women and children, and last but not least, drafting the Somali Women's Charter and the Somali National Action Plan for Women, Peace and Security. But meanwhile, and I'm sorry to stress this, that we are seeing some worrying trends that challenges such progress. First, the introduction of the Sexual Intercourse Bill, seeking to replace the cabinet-approved Sexual Offences Bill. This new bill would legalize child and forced marriage and represents a major setback for Somali women and girls, and as we see it, for the re-engagement with the international community. Secondly, as has also been mentioned by others, it's by no way certain that the ambitious target of 30% women will be achieved in the upcoming elections. The nomination of electoral committees was a disappointing preview, with very few women nominated indeed. If women are to be guaranteed meaningful and equal participation in all spheres of political, economic, and social life, Their rights must be equal to the rights of men, and their participation must be ensured. We are looking forward from Denmark, from Copenhagen, from our representation in New York to continue to discuss these issues and to follow the peace-building progress in Somalia and the work of the PBC in this regard. Thank you, Chair. Thank you all for this discussion today. And back to you.
Thank you so much, Lotte, much appreciated. And some very, I think, important reality checks that we need to hear and understand better. We're going to hear now from the Africa Development Bank, Nana Nwafubo. Nana.
Sorry, I'm getting ready because I didn't know it was my turn.
It's your turn.
Okay, thank you very much. Your Excellencies, Prime Minister and Deputy Prime Minister of the Federal Government of Somalia, Your Excellency, Ms. Hanifa Mohamed Ibrahim, Chair of the Peacebuilding Commission, Your Excellency, Mr. Bob Ray, members and partners of PBC and Somalia, ministers, ambassadors, excellencies, colleagues, ladies and gentlemen. On behalf of the Dr. Adesina, the President of the African Development Bank, I wish to express the AFDB's sincere appreciation for the invitation by the PBC Chair to join today's important session on Somalia. Let me start by saying that strong partnerships are key as we support our African member countries and Somalia specifically in collective efforts to scale up inclusive and sustainable development impact and results for all. The AFDB's mandate is to contribute to the sustainable economic development and social progress of its regional members, individually and jointly. This mandate cannot be effectively delivered when peace and stability are not in place. In other words, there cannot be development without peace, but we are also aware that development reinforces peace and stability. Somalia has experienced multiple shocks, COVID-19 pandemic, floods, and locust invasions, all of which have halted the progress made in recent years. It is important to note, however, that if Somalia had not gone through tough but necessary reforms that began in 2016, the situation could have been worse today. There is no single institution or government that can single-handedly help Somalia achieve its development aspirations. Hence, the need for international stakeholders to work collaboratively and complement each other. This requires high levels of coordination, and we saw this play out in the process towards ARIA's clearance. ARIA's clearance was the first step in that process, which helped Somalia reach decision point in March this year under the enhanced HIPIC initiative. Preparations for Somalia's ARIA's clearance started in 2014 when the AFDB provided technical assistance to reconcile debt data. With the support of the World Bank, the IMF, and other international partners, implementation of the first SMP began in 2016. Somalia went on to successfully implement 3 IMF SMPs. The 4th SMP was converted into a 3-year extended credit facility and extended fund facility finance program, which is currently ongoing. As we all know, there has been great success in implementing reforms in Somalia, but these need to be deepened and sustained before HIPIC completion point and full debt relief, which is expected to be achieved by 2024 at the latest. Debt relief will free resources to be redirected to financing development and cushioning the impact of persistent shocks on the most vulnerable population. Strong donor and partner support to Somalia, as well as flexible vehicles with a focus on inclusive development and resilience, will enable mobilization of additional resources with positive effects and enhanced peace, stability, and prosperity for the Somali people. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, Nana. It's important for us to be reminded of the need to talk about development at the same time as we talk about security and order and those other basic issues around and human rights, all the issues together. It's good to hear from you, and we really appreciate your partnership with us. We're now going to hear from a few PRs, Ethiopia, Morocco, the AU, Brazil, Ireland, and Slovakia. So we'll start with Ethiopia.
Thank you, Ambassador Bob. Thank you very much. We commend your leadership and thank for organizing this very important meeting. I wish to welcome and thank the remarks by our dear brother, Prime Minister Mohamed Roble, and also Ms. Hanifa Ibrahim. And also I would like to thank ASG Oscar Fernandez and SRG James Swan. We thank all the briefers. Ethiopia notes with great appreciation the progress towards peace building and state building in Somalia. As enumerated by His Excellency Prime Minister Roble, Somalia has indeed come a long way. The agreement on modalities for upcoming election, as well as progress on the implementation of the National Reconciliation Framework, are critical milestones. We are pleased that in a few months, the people of Somalia will elect their representatives. The agreement over the electoral law between the federal government and the federal member states is a major step to bring this long-awaited election to fruition. While full recovery and reconciliation will understandably take time, improved relations and consultations among all stakeholders is important to sustain the current positive trajectory. Mr. Chair, as mentioned by previous speakers, Somalia faces multifaceted challenges. Al-Shabaab remains a serious threat to Somalia and wider region. AMISOM, in collaboration with the Somali security forces, have registered laudable progress. Yet Somalia needs continued support in maintaining peace and security and fending off the threat of terrorism. In this regard, it is our view that the planned withdrawal of AMISOM should be contingent upon the ability of Somali Security Service to assume the responsibility of ensuring peace and maintaining the gains registered so far. As highlighted in the Common African Position on the 2020 review of the UN peacebuilding architecture, national ownership of all the efforts is critical to the success we seek to achieve in Somalia. The role of all actors, other than the people and government of Somalia, should solely be to help build capacity and resilience. Therefore, it is imperative to align external support with national priorities. In addition, partnership with regional and sub-regional mechanisms, as well as cross-sectoral coordination within the UN system, can help streamline stabilization and socio-economic recovery efforts in Somalia. Equally, regional efforts to ensure lasting partnership, greater cooperation, and regional economic integration should be supported as well. At this critical juncture of Somalia, the support of the UN and the international community is more important than ever. PBC has an important role to play in complementing efforts to realize a peaceful Somalia. In conclusion, let me reiterate Ethiopia's unwavering support and solidarity with the sisterly people and government of Somalia, and our support for the attainment of full recovery and peace-building objectives. I thank you, Ambassador.
Omar, you're next.
Thank you very much, my dear Rob. Dear President, we have listened to our brother, His Excellency, the Prime Minister Mohamed Rob and Ms. Ibrahim. And I would like to seize this opportunity, this meeting, to express the full support.
Excuse me, Omar, just for a second. We're getting some feedback from something.
Yes.
I don't know whether it's from you or whether it's from a radio or something.
Yeah, is it okay now?
It's okay now. Yeah, good.
Very much. So I would like to express our full support to the peace, security, stability, and development of the people and government of Somalia, particularly in this their fight against continued multidimensional threats such as terrorism, climate change, and COVID. We wish, therefore, to voice our strong support to the tremendous resolve and effort deployed by Somalia in order to continue to consolidate and sustain its peace. A lot has been currently done, and we particularly commend the condition for holding of fair and free elections in timely manner and to pursue advances in the justice sector. However, in order to safeguard the progress made so far and to prevent the Somali building process from that the international community needs to take into account the concern expressed by the Somali government before and especially this morning, as we have heard today. As socio-economic development remains at the heart of the peace-building effort, I wish to commend the system and process established within the framework of the economic reforms by the government of Somalia and invite the PBC to make use its unique convening, advisory, and bridging role to mobilize all necessary partners and to bring further attention to the key nationally identified areas of cooperation. Morocco stands with the government and people of Somalia and remain ready to further deepen their excellent long-standing and brotherly bilateral relations. A year ago, both countries agreed on 3 major memoranda to strengthen their cooperative partnership, which paved the way to create the Morocco-Somalia High Joint Committee, aimed to implement cooperation at the levels of economy, diplomacy, finance, commerce, culture, science, and the judiciary system. To conclude, Mr. Chair, I wish to draw attention on the launch by the Somali government of the National Reconciliation Framework as an instrument of peace-building initiative. The international community is called to support fully and constructively this initiative by opening a funding window in the UNDP Multi-Partner Fund, in addition to the PBF. I thank you very much, Mr. Chair.
Omar, thank you so much. Very, very helpful. From the AU, Fatima.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chair, Honorable Prime Minister, distinguished briefers, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen. Permit me to stand on existing protocols. I'd like to thank, first of all, the Peacebuilding Commission for convening the meeting and thank all the speakers, particularly His Excellency, the Prime Minister, and his team for their insightful contributions to this important meeting. This meeting is timely and comes at a critical juncture for Somalia's efforts to build lasting peace and security. In a few weeks, Somalia will commence its national elections and also endorse the revised Somali transition plan. And this will serve as a framework for Somalia's future security support, also leading to AMISOM's gradual exit from Somalia. I'd like to also note that Somalia's peacebuilding funding re-eligibility approval in July 2020 ensures continued support from the Peacebuilding Fund. And this approval will allow Somalia to draw on funding for the next 5 years for its new peacebuilding and sustaining peace initiatives that are in line with its national priorities. Mr. Chair, I know we're running out of time, but please permit me to be a little bit long, given that there are a number of factors that I'm required to raise, particularly within the political context, the security context, and also the AU's support to peace building. So please bear with me. First of all, within the political context, since the beginning of 2020, under the leadership of President Farmajo, Somali leaders have been seeking opportunities to resolve their differences on a range of key national issues. After a long pause, Somalia is now witnessing political process with the resumption of dialogue and collaboration between the federal government and the federal member states. This is a positive development as it bodes well on the promotion of peace-building initiatives many that are supported by the African Union. In this context, I'd like to acknowledge the recent positive steps that we view as key to Somalia's peace-building efforts. Notably, first, in the beginning of June, the development, the advance on Somalia's long-term stability, particularly the federal government formally recognizing the administration in Jubaland. And secondly, the president of Jubaland's constructive response to the federal government's step, resulting in a series of consultative dialogues between Somali leaders, initial virtual meetings, and later through a series of physical meetings under the Dusamarib process between July and August. Secondly, the AU acknowledges that the Dusamarib process was a reflection of Somali leaders' commitment to foster dialogue and reconciliation as part of strengthening the country's unity and solidarity. In this context, the significant role of the African Union mission in Somalia, the African Union mission in Somalia played a significant role in providing political space for Somali leaders to engage in reconciliation. I'd like to also underline the importance of the Dusamarib process, where a spirit of cooperation was forged, resulting in a more inclusive reconciliation in Mogadishu in September. On September 17th, in particular, the dialogue was concluded with a political agreement on Somalia's election model. In terms of the security context, maybe I can skip over this in the interest of time and go directly to the African Union's support to peace building in Somalia. First, I'd like to inform you that the AU continues to support peace building efforts in Somalia through the mandates of AMISOM, both in accordance with the AU PSC Communique 923 and UNSCR 2520. And since 2018, the African Union has supported the implementation of the Somali Transition Plan, which is also aligned to NDP 9, Pillar 2 on security. Secondly, AMISOM's military, police, and civilian components have effectively helped in the implementation of the STP, and this has resulted in AMISOM reconfiguring its forces and equipment to secure main supply routes and population centers across Somalia. This is in addition to AMISOM handing over key priority locations to Somali security forces and conducting offensive and targeted operations to degrade al-Shabaab across all AMISOM sectors. In addition, AMISOM has also received al-Shabaab defectors on a transitory basis and generation of mobile forces across some of its sectors. This has allowed AMISOM to provide training and equipment to Somali security forces through combat readiness monitoring. In addition, there have been other contributions. The police have continued to register progress in the implementation of the STP, and specifically in supporting the Somali police force in institutional and individual capacity, and also training, mentoring, and provision of technical assistance. The AMISOM police is also supporting election security with a series of activities. Furthermore, AMISOM police have supported the establishment of regional state police through conducting operational readiness assessments for 19,948 regional forces and trained Somali Darawish police. This has allowed AMISOM police to have a presence at all functional police stations and police headquarters in Mogadishu. Finally, I'd like to underline AMISOM's civilians in particular in terms of supporting the task of the military and the police as part of African Union's contribution to peace building. These include the civilians supporting the implementation of the Somali political process, including through creating space for dialogue, reconciliation, and negotiations, and facilitating the Somali state formation process. This has seen progress in ensuring smooth and structured interaction with humanitarian actors, as well as facilitating enhanced humanitarian aid delivery across Somalia through improved engagement, liaison, coordination with humanitarian actors. Finally, Mr. Chair, and in conclusion, We'd like to once again commend the federal government's commitment to peace building, and we welcome the resumption of dialogue and cooperation between the federal government and federal member states, and we'll continue to support the revised transition plan, which will provide Somalia's partners with a renewed agreement on a roadmap that will deliver peace and stability to Somalia. I thank you. You're muted, Chair. We can't hear you.
Thank you, Fatima. Your knowledge on the ground is really very helpful. I think it's critical. We all understand that the AU is going to be playing a critical role in the work that's ongoing, particularly on the security front. And I think your comments are really welcome. So there's no need to apologize for the length of your contribution, because it was so substantive and detailed. We really appreciate it very much. Ronaldo from Brazil.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, for bringing us together once again and allowing us to gain new insights into the peace building efforts in Somalia, as well as to discuss ways in which Somalia can continue to deepen its engagement with the Peace Building Commission in the coming year. Let me also thank Prime Minister Mohamed Hussein Roble for making time to meet with us today, as well as SRSG James Swan and all the other briefers for their very comprehensive interventions. Now, as many have pointed out here today, Somalia still has serious challenges before it in pursuit of self-sustaining peace. Notwithstanding this, we must also acknowledge that the situation in Somalia has improved a great deal in the course of the past decade. We welcome the progress made in the security and political fronts and encourage all interested parties to keep up with efforts aimed at fighting al-Shabaab and strengthening the Somali state's sovereignty and democratic institutions. More recently, we salute in particular the improved relations between the federal government and the federal member states, and the agreement on an electoral model, as well as the adoption of the Somali Women's Charter. We reiterate our calls for international partners to reinforce their cooperation efforts in Somalia, while also aligning their support with Somali priorities. Somali society deserves the chance to lead the search and discover its own path to sustainable peace and prosperity. I appreciate in this regard learning more about the implementation of the 9th National Development Plan. Building peace and promoting sustainable development remain our most effective weapons in the fight against violent extremism and terrorism. This may be of particular socioeconomic conditions on the ground, as we increase incentives for people to lead peaceful lives and build resilience. Before I conclude, allow me to reaffirm our commitment to combating the socioeconomic distortions reinforced by the COVID-19 pandemic. The serious impacts on hunger and nutrition are of particular concern, and we must take all efforts and prevent the resurgence of hunger and famine. Now, achieving this goal requires us to strengthen local agricultural capacities in several peace-building settings. With that in mind, Brazil has collaborated with the World Food Programme in projects aimed at curbing food insecurity in the Horn of Africa. We also established new initiatives with the African Union to fight food insecurity in the context of the pandemic. At the same time, on the global front, we must also ensure that international chains of production and distribution of food will be reinforced during our efforts to build back from COVID-19. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Ronaldo. Ireland, Geraldine.
Thank you very much, Bob, and to all the briefers. Prime Minister, Minister Ibrahim, it's an honor to be with you today, and delighted, Prime Minister, as you said, to welcome you back. To the PPC. As an Irish woman, I personally will never forget the tears of President Mary Robinson, President of Ireland, when she visited you over 2 decades ago during a deep crisis. She left Baidoa, Agoy, Mandera, Mogadishu, deeply concerned, and called on all of us to take our responsibility. Irish people have a deep affinity with your country, Prime Minister and Minister. And as we take our seat on the 1st of January on the UN Security Council, I can promise you we'll continue to be a supportive and a concerned partner for you in that new role. Prime Minister, as you said yourself, you have had a hard pathway and the challenges are not over. But I would just touch on 3 points this morning as we work with you with, I will say, renewed optimism despite those challenges. First, on the elections, you've heard almost every speaker this morning, Prime Minister, Minister, say we want to accompany you on that successful election path, despite the complexity. We know the insecurity, the terrorist challenges, and indeed your humanitarian needs will, of course, be a very complex backdrop to what you're about to do. I have to say, in accompanying you, we regret that it's not a one person, one vote election, but we look forward to 24, 25, when we hope to see that happen. I'm encouraged by what you said to us today about your commitment on inclusivity, particularly on the 30% target for women, underlining the point many have made about youth engagement, civil society, and I would add also ensuring that we're vigilant around the freedom of the media. We will work with you tirelessly to ensure that this is all respected. On the second point, on the Peacebuilding Fund, Ireland chairs the advisory group to the Secretary General. We're a big supporter of the excellent Peacebuilding Fund, and I'm really delighted to see you're back in the re-eligibility framework. Particularly pleased to see that reconciliation has emerged as one of your priorities. We think that will bring new momentum and buy into your own national reconciliation framework. In Ireland, almost unfortunately, we have experience of national reconciliation and peace on the island of Ireland, successful as it is. And I'm delighted to say that on the 1st of January, Ireland will begin a dedicated programme of support to Somali women peace builders in the context of peace and reconciliation. We're doing that as we move on to that Security Council, where we hope to champion women, peace and security as a big objective. So I wanted to applaud the work you've done in adopting the Somali Women's Charter and Action Plan. And Minister, to say to you in your very aptly named Ministry, Ministry of Women and Human Rights and Development, that we want to see this as a really engaged and participative process. We know from what you've said to us today, that's what you will do. With that political support, you know it's not just rhetorical, because we can see now that the PBF will spend most of its money in Somalia on promoting women's role in peace building, and you will have us with that political and moral support back here in New York. We in Ireland will work with your grassroots women to ensure engagement and assistance that you need. And I'll conclude just by echoing the point that Oscar and others made earlier, welcoming the priorities identified at the World Bank. We think that's a really important partnership, and we hope that you make the best of that. So delighted to be with you and looking forward to continuing to work with you. Thank you.
Thank you, Geraldine. Next speaker is Mikhail from Slovakia.
Thanks very much, dear Bob. Mr. Chair, sincere greetings to all colleagues, and especially to our distinguished briefers, the Prime Minister, Madam Minister, and SRSG Swan. It's really been a very enlightening and extremely useful and practical session, and a timely one, re-engaging within the PBC context on Somalia again. Other colleagues have mentioned their own connections. I, of course, have to mention my own connection to Somalia as well. Slovakia only established diplomatic relations with the, so to say, new federal government of Somalia in 2013. And then I served in Nairobi from 2012 until 15. And up till now, I remain the only Slovak ambassador who actually has presented his credentials in Mogadishu. But that's not the important part. The important part is that myself, I had an opportunity to engage a lot on the challenges related to Somalia's political process, the transitions, as well as, in particular, the issue of security sector governance and reform. And this is certainly something that we continue following very closely, and we are very happy to further engage on. Geraldine has finished with welcoming the priorities, like other colleagues have mentioned, and I, of course, have to pick up on that as well. We fully agree with the important priorities that the Prime Minister, but others have also highlighted, starting with reconciliation, justice, rule of law, security, governance. And of course, when I mention security and governance together, it leads me to the important issue of security sector governance and reform. And of course, the role of women and youth is absolutely critical. And we haven't really mentioned COVID-19 too much, but we of course know that this is an underlying challenge that has complicated things also for Somalia, and certainly we keep an eye on developments also in that context, and we hope that the country with its weak institutional structures will be able to cope with this additional challenge. And in fact, the institutional capacities is also something that I think we need to further focus on in our work in the peace-building context. We very much welcome the recent consensus among Somalia's political leaders on a plan to hold parliamentary and presidential elections through indirect voting. We certainly hope that the outstanding issues will be resolved in order to ensure that the upcoming elections are inclusive, transparent, and credible. Of course, the continued activities and a lot of underlying challenges related to terrorism and to Al-Shabaab are something which we continue following. Just a couple of days ago, I had an opportunity to discuss with some UN colleagues, with some UN staff, some direct implications of a terrorist attack which occurred in an ice cream shop in Mogadishu, and I was struck by loss of innocent civilians and other challenges which are, of course, closely related to that. The importance of women, peace and security agenda has been emphasized already. I just want to add that it is really crucial that women are represented properly at all decision-making levels, in all electoral bodies, also including in electoral committees and other contexts as well. And in that context, the briefing by Madam Minister was extremely useful. We also welcome the renewal of the transition plan, under which national authorities will take over greater security leadership from AMISOM by the end of 2021. We would like to underline the UN role in helping to strengthen the capacity of national forces even beyond that period, when AMISOM evolves into a role in which it can enable Somalia to assume full responsibility for its own security. So either today or maybe at a future opportunity, we would certainly welcome further details from SRSG Swan on that particular aspect, or if there is anything else that we can collectively do in order to further support his own efforts in this particular context. I was very happy to hear from Oscar about the important developments regarding the partnership with the World Bank. In fact, I have a short trip to Washington, D.C. next Monday and Tuesday, and I will have a few meetings at the World Bank with colleagues who are responsible for security sector governance and reform. So I will certainly be very happy to engage with them also on some of the specific details of the World Bank support in this particular area, or if there is maybe something that we can further assist both the UN and the World Bank in this particular context. Let me wrap up by reassuring you that also in the context of the group of friends of security sector reform, together with South Africa, we remain more than willing and ready to also have some spotlight on related developments regarding Somalia. In fact, in 2021, we hope to organize our edition 2 of the high-level roundtable on security sector governance and reform and peace building and sustaining peace, which we originally were hoping to already organize this November, but due to COVID-19, we decided to postpone it until 2021. So we will certainly be in touch with the Somali authorities as well as with SRSG Swan in particular regarding the preparation of this event. Bob, I will leave it at that. Thanks very much again.
Thank you, Mikal. Mohammed from Egypt is with us. I see you on the screen. Let me just go over the rest. Coming up, we have Kenya, Korea, the EU, UK, Netherlands, Japan, and France. So we'll start. Mohammed, over to you.
Thank you very much, dear Chairman Bob, for convening this highly important meeting with this high-level participation. I'd love to join in welcoming and appreciating the presence of His Excellency Prime Minister of Somalia, the Deputy Prime Minister, the ministers, the SRSG and the ASG for PBSO, and all the high-level participants from different member states. Mr. Chairman, Somalia is approaching a very crucial juncture represented in the parliamentary and presidential elections due to take place in the foreseen future. These elections will have a major impact on the country's security situation and the capacity to continue to degrade Al-Shabaab and other terrorist groups, as well as addressing the future of AMISOM according to the level of delivery on the revised transition plan. The ongoing deliberation regarding the future of AMISOM in the preparation for the renewal of its mandate and at the beginning of next year, as well as the alternatives to international engagement with Somalia post-2021, is very much relevant to the whole entire African continent and should be led by the different relevant African institutional frameworks, notably the Peace and Security Council of the African Union. Egypt is looking forward to actively participating in the discussions and events related to the future of Somalia and the AMISOM in relation to Egypt's strategic connection to the state of peace and security in Somalia and the Horn of Africa as a whole. Egypt has been and will continue engaging with sisterly Somalia in promoting cooperation in diversified fields pertaining to capacity building and institutional building in sisterly Somalia. It is imperative to develop the composition, mandate, and strength of AMISOM to make it more capable of dealing with Somalia's security needs and variables. Moreover, Egypt stresses the importance of maintaining any form of international presence in Somalia post-2021 under the umbrella of the African Union and the United Nations. To conclude, Mr. Chairman, Egypt underlined the importance of economic and social recovery in the Federal Republic of Somalia for the sustainability of restoring peace and stability, and in working for the rapid operationalization of the AU post-conflict African Union post-conflict construction and development center to take part of these efforts and assist Sister Somalia in their way forward. Egypt confirms its readiness to positively engage throughout all of its capabilities in any regional or international efforts to support the implementation of the strategic vision of the revised Somali transition plan in accordance with the vision and mission of this transition plan. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mohammed. Mike from Kenya.
Thank you very much, Chairman, for convening this meeting and for giving us the opportunity. Allow me at the outset to welcome and recognize the presence of the Prime Minister, His Excellency Mohammed Hussein Roble, and Excellency Hanifa Mohammed Ibrahim, Minister of Women and Human Rights Development, also for their insightful briefings to the Commission. Let me also thank SRSG James Swan, ASG Fernandez Tarango, and Ms. Rauda Olat for their observations and recommendations. There has been a notable progress on the political, social, and economic spheres in Somalia since the last time the UN Peacebuilding Commission deliberated on the situation in 2015. We are hopeful that there will be more frequent meetings between the PBC and Somalia so as to effectively respond to the emerging needs, situations, and thereby sustain the positive trajectory that is currently going on. I'll limit myself to 4 points, Mr. Chairman. And the first is on security. The bedrock for effective implementation of the peace building programs rests on making progress on the security front. Security threats posed by Al-Shabaab, other terror groups, and armed militias in Somalia still persist. The generation and capacity building of Somali National Security Forces, therefore, remains a critical pillar of the peace building efforts. There is a window of opportunity for the PBC to support the ongoing work in this endeavor. International investments in the security sector, including through financial, operational, and logistical support, will facilitate the gradual transfer of security responsibilities from AMISOM to Somalia National Army. My second point is on institutional building for effective governance. In Somalia, peace building and state building processes have to go hand in hand in order to address the perpetual cycles of conflict. Building of state institutions should be implemented by efforts towards national reconciliation. A key component of these efforts is the rapid implementation of the Somali-owned political roadmap on inclusive politics, which among others provide for the completion of the Somalia constitution and holding of the elections in 2020-2021. As the country begins the electioneering period, it is also important for the UN agencies to prepare to support this process, and in particular, capacitating the institutions that have been set up to manage the elections. The elections will definitely shape and define the political, security, and economic direction in Somalia. Therefore, the process should be seen to be inclusive, credible, fair, and transparent as provided in the roadmap that was agreed among Somalia leaders. My delegation commends the Ministry of Women and Human Rights Development for the efforts, including enhancing the role women play in prevention of conflict and sustaining peace within communities. There is need for increased investments in these localized women initiatives, as well as a greater representation of women at political levels. My third point, Mr. Chairman, is the emphasis on Somalia ownership. My delegation is glad to hear that the Peace Building Fund supporting Somalia is looking more into forward-leaning initiatives and strategically positioning itself in the humanitarian development peace-building nexus. The PBC is particularly well-suited in partnership with Somali government and in coordination with other stakeholders in identifying these building priorities. Sustainable peace can only be achieved through inclusive national ownership with Somalia determining its own political, institutional, and economic arrangements for the benefit of the whole of the society. Moving forward, it's important to create a framework that brings coherence to the diverse investment practices and activities related to peace building. External investment efforts need to be streamlined. And in this regard, international partners should seize the opportunity to align their investments with Somalia's national and sustainable development plan. And therefore, Kenya welcomes the recent signing of the new UN Sustainable Development Cooperation Framework 2021-2025 with the federal government of Somalia. In conclusion, let me reaffirm Kenya's commitment to continue to support and work closely with our Somalia brothers and sisters to ensure that the country becomes peaceful, stable, secure, and prosperous. I thank you, Your Excellencies.
Thank you, Mike. Korea, Jeolju.
Well, Mr. Chair, thank you so much. Let me just begin by joining the other delegations in thanking the briefers for today's meeting, especially Prime Minister of Federal Republic of Somalia for sharing their valuable insight. Today's meeting is, I think, particularly timely and relevant as the coming months will be very crucial in determining the future trajectory of Somalia. With the coming two important elections, we sincerely welcome Somalia's engagement with the PBC at this critical juncture. Against this backdrop, the Republic of Korea would like to highlight the following 3 points. First, fair, free, and inclusive elections are essential for the peace-building process in Somalia, although the universal suffrage could not be achieved in the elections this time so as hoped. We are still encouraged to see that the agreement has been reached on the modality of the elections through extensive dialogues. We look forward to the election being conducted according to the planned timetable. Secondly, the Republic of Korea would like to reiterate the importance of full, equal, and meaningful participation of women in decision-making and political processes in Somalia. In this regard, we are pleased to note a 30% women quota for the parliament at the general election. It is particularly meaningful in a sense that this year we are celebrating the 20th anniversary of landmark Security Council Resolution 1325 on women, peace, and security. Furthermore, we highlight the great need to step up sustained effort to eliminate sexual gender-based violence. In this context, we are a bit concerned about sexual intercourse-related crimes bill, and the ROK would like to reiterate the importance of a survivor-centered approach. Last but not least, the ROK underlined the role of the PBF support to Somalia, which is based on humanitarian development and peace-building nexus. We remain deeply concerned that the security and humanitarian situation in Somalia continues to be volatile. Al-Shabaab continues to pose a great security threat to Somalia, exploiting the country's persistent vulnerability. Furthermore, the current pandemic, floods, and low-cost crisis are all aggravating the serious humanitarian difficulties in Somalia. To tackle these multifaceted challenges, a comprehensive approach is necessary. In this regard, we are pleased to note that Somalia's request for PBF eligibilities was approved by the Secretary General in July, and hope that PBF can further contribute to the peace-building achievement in a holistic manner. Mr. Chair, in closing, although Somalia has been making notable progress in peace-building and recovery, it is still facing complex challenges from poverty to persistent violence and instability. As such, my delegation hopes that the PBC and the PBF can continue to support Somalia on its path toward sustaining peace, and the Republic of Korea pledges to do its part to this end. I thank you. Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Park. Silvio from the EU.
Hi, Bob. Thank you. And allow me to skip all the thanks and acknowledgements. Thank you for this meeting. For us, Somalia is an important partner. We spent over 2 billion euros in support to AMISOM since its inception. And in the past 6 years, in terms of development cooperation, humanitarian and security cooperation, another 2 billion. So you can imagine how interested we were in this meeting. There are opportunities now. Somalia has achieved, the HIPC debt relief. This opens opportunity for the country, but it's important that both the federal government and the federal states work together in this respect to maximize what comes out of this. AMISOM has, together with the Somali National Army, together with AMISOM, has gained territory from Al-Shabaab. We need to consolidate that. And most importantly, we have the elections. And it's important that these elections were organized in the spirit of compromise and consensus, and that is the spirit that we need to maintain. And in that context, I welcome the presence of the Minister for Women Rights and the importance that must be attached to the role of women also in the electoral process. And there, we call on financial barriers to women candidates to be removed. But the elections should not distract us from the importance of the Somali transition plan and the need to implement it. The need to ensure that the state authority is extended and there is effective cooperation with the regional and local level. In this respect, we've organized last Monday a high-level event to understand how the international community can support the Somali authorities and understand better their needs for future stabilization and security arrangements. But security won't be achieved unless there's also a political settlement. And that's why we attach a lot of importance on a continued and structured dialogue between the federal government and the federal member states. They need together to address the root causes of instability in Somalia. Let me also say that we need perhaps also to strengthen the regional context, ensure that there is consensus amongst the different partners in the region in supporting Somalia and accompanying Somalia in its transition process from AMISOM to Somali Security National Army that is in charge of the security of the country. To conclude, we also need to ensure that Somali and international partners' efforts are coordinated and monitored in an effective way. In this respect, we feel that we should continue the dialogue between the Somalia and the international community within the mutual accountability framework. And we need also to reinvigorate the comprehensive approach to security coordination structure as the main body for coordinating our effort in this respect. Thank you very much, Bob.
Thank you, Silvio. Jonathan from the UK.
Thanks, Bob. Like Silvio, let me waive the full thank yous and acknowledgements given time. I think the background to my comments is of strong and sustained UK support over many years, both political and financial, and against a backdrop of important progress made by Somalia and in Somalia, but with a way still to go, and a way still to go in the face of some quite considerable challenges, be they political, be they economic, be they environmental, be they right now health. And just to follow on from Silvio, it's really good to hear about the sort of sustained EU commitments to Somalia, which is really important for all of us to sort of stick with Somalia, I think, at this crucial moment. Now, a few sort of quick points, Bob. Firstly, on elections, I really agree with others who have said how positive a development the agreement between the federal government and the member states on the electoral model is. And I just think it's really important that that consensus is preserved. We really, as we go through the elections and the aftermath, we need to see the spirit of consensus. So I really urge Somali stakeholders to work together on this. And in that context, let me just say a word on the women's representation. There's clearly the 30% quota, which is part of the Somali own legislation. It was great to see the Minister for Women and Development, Women and Human Rights Development earlier. I hope that Somalia will carry on its progress towards developing a national action plan to implement the Women, Peace and Security agenda. And the UK is very much ready to assist with that as needed. On the elections, I think, again, another important point is around protecting and upholding freedom of expression and creating a safe operating environment for journalists. We very much welcome the announcement in September of the appointment of a special prosecutor to investigate and prosecute those responsible for killing journalists in Somalia, and also the Prime Minister's own announcement in October of a moratorium on arrests of journalists. These are important things to take forward. On security, we welcome very much the refresh of the transition plan. It gives a clear sense of the Somali government's own assessment of its future security priorities, including the support needed from an international security mission. And there remains a clear need for an AU-led mission, but we must be agile. We must adapt to the changing situation. And crucially, we need that mission to build the capacity of Somali forces. The UK will be holding the pen on the renewal of the AMISOM mandate in February in the Security Council. We believe that that should set out the ways in which AMISOM can support delivery of the Somali transition plan for the year ahead. And we would welcome widespread international engagement in that process. I talked earlier about the importance of the Somali stakeholders sticking together on elections. It's vital that the federal government and its member states engage, talk, find collaboration. That's at the heart of all of everything we're trying to do in Somalia and everything Somalia is trying to do. So that's not just the election process. It's building state institutions, it's effective federalism, it's ensuring resources and power distribution in a way which best serves the Somali people. Now, Bob, I don't know if you're allowing questions to be interactive to Jim Swan, but just in case Jim's gone catatonic, I wanted to just suggest to ask him. We're talking about these elections now, Jim, but I know as an ambitious person, you'll be thinking about 2024, 2025, direct elections, an inclusive political settlement, progress made, wider and more wider stability. I just wonder whether you can say anything about the UN's roadmap, if you like, past the immediate elections and almost into the next cycle, and how you see the UN supporting Somalia, how you see it working with partners across the UN system and the IFIs, what structures are in place for joint analysis, a sort of joint peace building strategy. How can we make sure that the government, the member states, and we, the international community, are all operating on the basis of a shared understanding as we go forward? Thank you very much.
Thanks, Jonathan. Much appreciated. Mark, Hiroyuki, and Estelle are the last three. Mark.
Great, thank you, Bob. And it's always slightly intimidating to have to speak after Jonathan, who always makes such great points and much more eloquent than I could ever hope to do. But it's great to be here nonetheless today, both as a staunch supporter of the Peacebuilding Commission and the fund, to which we've contributed 20 million over the last year, and of course as a staunch supporter to Somalia, to which we have committed close to 90 million over the last 8 years. And fortunately, like many people have said before, it's not been in vain. Somalia has come a very long way in the last 10 years, even though Somalia has faced such an incredible host of challenges, ranging from terrorism, drought, floods, locusts, now COVID. And there's one point in particular that struck a chord with me, and that was Madame Rolad, who mentioned mental health. And of course, there are so many young people in Somalia that have witnessed terrible atrocities. They leave scars on the soul, and if those scars aren't healed properly, then they will remain a source of violence and of conflict, of terrorism. And it's great to see that the Peacebuilding Fund is also allocating more money for the coming year to address mental health and psychosocial support. I'll just limit myself to 3 points today. First, on the durable peace and stability in Somalia, which demands reconciliation and close collaboration between the federal government and the federal member states in an institutionalized manner. So we cannot stress this often enough. Second point is on the importance to fill the quota of 30% of women. That point has been made more often. Obviously, it's not just about percentages, it's also about the very clear evidence that any society that includes women in its ranks is more resilient as a result. So this is really an important point. And lastly, the security situation. I'd like to pay homage to the crucial role that Amazon has played in this regard. And the successful implementation of this soon expected Somali transition plan could constitute another significant step towards security in Somalia. Military operations need, however, to be synchronized with stabilization efforts and, more importantly, the extension of rule of law and state authority. And security must go hand in hand with justice and rule of law. This includes civic space for civil society organizations and political parties and increasing inclusivity of marginalized groups. So I hope the meeting today and our accumulated efforts will ensure that the promise of peace, stability, and prosperity for Somalia does become a reality. And we're looking forward to being part of that effort with all of you. Thank you.
Thank you. Next to Hiroyuki from Japan.
Thank you, Ambassador Lei. It is a great honor for me to be with His Excellency Prime Minister Roble, Her Excellency Minister Ibrahim. I thank all the other distinguished briefers as well. I will make my statement very concise. Japan believes that there are three important points: reconciliation, inclusion, and institution building. All the 3 points were touched upon by many previous speakers. In particular, I am encouraged that Prime Minister underlined the importance of state building and other institution building. It is indeed essential to make efforts to build effective, accountable, and inclusive institutions at all levels. As highlighted in the federal government's stabilization strategy, it is of paramount importance to restore and promote confidence in state institutions among the population. International assistance needs to be coordinated well. One good example here is a UN multi-agency project led by the IOM, UN Habitat, UNOPS, and UNDP, which Japan has supported through the Peacebuilding Fund and the UN Trust Fund for Human Security. This project has effectively contributed to facilitating the sustainable return and integration of IDPs and refugees, and to building trust between the population and local authorities in southern Somalia. Japan intends to provide further assistance to Somalia in its pursuit of peace, stability, and sustainable development under Japan's new approach for peace and stability in Africa, or NAPSA. I thank you.
Thank you, Hiroyuki. Very concise. Estelle.
Excellencies, distinguished participants, I thank all the briefers as well as the Ambassador of Canada for chairing this meeting. This is a very important moment for Somalia, a few weeks ahead of the elections. And on this subject, like many of the previous speakers, France welcomed the dialogue between the Somali federal government and the federal states, which led to an electoral agreement. Following the French intervention at the Security Council last week, we regret that the one person, one vote was not retained and that all Somalis will not take part in this vote directly. Our priority must be to ensure the credibility, timeliness, and inclusiveness of this election. The full participation of women will be crucial, and we are encouraged by the words in that regard of their Excellencies Prime Minister Roble and Minister Ibrahim. France remains concerned about the humanitarian and security situation in Somalia, as Al-Shabaab continues its deadly action against civilian population, whose plight is worsened by COVID-19 pandemic and the ravages of climate change. France calls for guaranteed humanitarian access and condemns attacks against humanitarian personnel. We also condemn attacks against Somali security forces and those who support them, starting with AMISOM. France emphasizes that this mission will have to evolve profoundly after 2021 to allow for a handover to the Somali security forces. France supports General Dos Santos Cruz and his team charged with conducting an independent assessment on Somalia. We call on all actors to act constructively so that this assessment can hear all points of view and submit its report before January 10th. Finally, the fight against Al-Shabaab cannot be solely a security issue. This underlines the importance of governance and economic recovery and the crucial role of the PBC in that regard, along with the UN, the African Union, and the European Union. We support continued efforts to strengthen the rule of law and democracy, the adoption of the constitutional revision, respect for human rights, and the fight against impunity, which are all essential to build lasting peace. Thank you.
Merci, Estelle. Colleagues, I'm going to just exercise my right to say something on behalf of Canada. I just want to make a couple of points in addition to those that have been made. The first one is to say to our Somali friends that they are in charge. This is not the Trusteeship Council. This is the Peacebuilding Commission. We work with you and we work in support of you, but we do not in any way, shape, or form replace you. Somalia must have sovereign capacity to address the critical issues which it faces. And the ownership by the Somali people and the Somali state to provide security, opportunity, a framework of rights and equality is very much the primary focus that we have, is to support the Somali government in these efforts. Listening to all of the speakers, I think you should interpret what we say in a way that should be seen as supportive, not in any way as critical. And I think when we look at the challenges that Somalia faces in terms of COVID, in terms of climate change, food insecurity, which is a polite word for saying, many parts of the country really facing very serious food shortages and major issues in terms of nutrition and people being kept in a healthy way to go forward. These are huge challenges. And we in Canada will continue to support you as we have done. And we will in particular support the need for an approach that is inclusive in terms of the role of women and the importance of recognizing equality between women and men, as well as the importance, and again, we come at it from our own experience, the importance of federalism, of federal governance, where we recognize the dignity of difference and the power of unity. And this is the unique feature of any federal system. And one can't help but feel that in the achievement of the goal of greater unity and of peaceful reconciliation and the achievement of security as a national goal, recognizing the dignity of difference will be part of it. We don't say that out of any sense of do what we do. We do it out of a sense of saying that seems to be the learned experience in governance, that recognizing differences is not anyone in Canada preaching to the people of Somalia. It's a way of saying, we have found in our experience this works. And when you don't do this, we find that there are problems. And that's the spirit with which we enter into the discussion. I think it's critically important that you feel the sense of ownership, because I often wonder if after these 3-hour marathon sessions that we have, what are the takeaways? What are you supposed to come away from? And the first one is we want to be supportive of what you want to do. And we're not dictating to anybody, because I think that era in human history is hopefully coming to a conclusion. And it's really about supporting you in the efforts that you're making to achieve peace, security, justice, and prosperity for your people, which is what all of us want in our own countries. I think it's important for us now to give you an opportunity to respond. Prime Minister, if you're there, or if a representative of the government of Somalia is still there, then we will gladly listen to you and give you an opportunity to respond. And then I'll see if there's any of the other briefers who'd like to comment. I don't know who's there. Prime Minister, are you there?
The Prime Minister left, and but the Minister is here, Minister Hanifa. Do you hear us?
Oh, good. Is Minister Hanifa here? Hanifa, would you like to respond? Don't hear her.
Jama,
do you about Ambassador?
Jama,
There?
Yeah, I think you should answer the question maybe, if the minister is not available. Yeah, Jama, go ahead.
Jama, go ahead, or Minister.
Yeah, thank you very much, Excellencies. It was I'm the Peacebuilding coordinator, Jamaigal, and I'm joining from the Office of the Prime Minister. I would like to also join my colleagues in the encouragements that we get from your speech and statements. We look forward to fruitful re-engagement with Peacebuilding Commission. The National Peacebuilding Unit is tasked to coordination of peacebuilding work under different ministries and agencies towards increased understanding of peacebuilding and reconciliation as approaches to sustainable development. We are more encouraged by your words and statements and remarks, and we're delighted to hear the immense support that you have expressed to support our country. We have taken a lot of takeaways and noted, and we will consider in our peace building and state building. Thank you very much. Thank you all.
Thank you, Jama. Minister, I see you're back on the line. Would you like to comment on what you've heard? Minister Hanifa, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. I'm here, Your Excellency. Thank you very much. Thanks for your statements and also your comments. And we appreciate your support and commitment for Somalia. And it was my pleasure to be in this meeting, and we already take note to your comments, and we will hopefully have the minutes soon. And I would like to ask if he's going to add my colleague Jama, our peace building coordinator, if he can add something or if he can have any points to add up.
He spoke already. He just gave us a presentation. It was very effective.
I had some internet technician problems, so I'm sorry about that.
No, we understand.
All I had to say.
Roland, we see you there on the screen. We were very impressed with your presentation on mental health and peace building. We'd love to. I don't know what you made of all of our presentations.
I already take the note about your presentations and your statement. I have been here, and thank you for your commitment and also your impressive statements. We take note about your key points.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very
Roland,
much.
would you like to speak?
Thank you all your time and then being all this meeting.
Thank you very much. Roland, would you like to say something?
Thank you, and it's well noted. And I'm very pleased today the opportunity to highlight the role of civil society, women, and mental health and peace building. And this is something that I have been waiting for, and I'm really grateful for Peace Building Commission and their engagement with Somalia. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. It's very good. You made an excellent presentation. We really appreciated it very, very much. Is Jim Swan around?
Yes, indeed.
Good.
Followed it all with interest.
Can you give us your take, Jim?
I think this very helpfully demonstrates that there is a great deal of goodwill and support and eagerness from throughout the international community, from all around the globe, looking to find ways to help Somalia and the Somali people as it continues to make progress. And I think the underlying message is that we are looking to the Somalis for guidance on how best we can contribute. I think, if I may, just super briefly, there were two specific points that were raised for me to comment on during the course of the day. One was on the security situation. And I'll just say, I think what we've learned over many years is that addressing security in Somalia is going to require an integrated, comprehensive approach. It's not just military. It's going to be police. It's going to be preventing violent extremism. It's going to be justice. And it needs to be done collectively. And I was very pleased that yesterday, the Prime Minister convened a meeting of the Security and Justice Committee, formerly known as the Comprehensive Approach to Security, to meet with key security stakeholders for a very interactive exchange, provide guidance on Somali security priorities, and this will be very helpful as we move forward together during the transition year. February will be the UN Security Council mandate renewal for AMISOM and for the UN Support Office for Somalia. So we have about 2.5 months to work together to make sure we have a common vision going forward. The second question, just very briefly, had to do with getting to elections in 2024, 2025. The Somali government has already begun work on a roadmap to that end, and they must have the lead on this. It'll be important for it to be widely consulted, but some elements that could be included would be further work on constitutional reform and putting in place constitutional institutions, perhaps working at the local or federal member state level on elections as a preparatory stage to getting to national elections in 2024, 2025. And of course, continuing to look at how to be more inclusive of women, youth, and previously underrepresented communities. So we look forward to working under Somali lead on a roadmap that will, we hope, deliver a quality and inclusive electoral process in 2024-25. Thank you again for chairing this important meeting.
Thank you, Jim. Oscar, are you around? Okay, I will sum up and just conclude as chair. I think we've had a very, very rich discussion. The level of interest is reflected in the number of speakers and the number of participants, not only in New York, but also from a number of capitals. I think the government of Somalia should feel that this is a reflection of two things. One is the level and degree of our commitment to be supportive of the objectives of the Somali government, the federal government, and of the people of Somalia, with whom I think we feel a very strong sense of connection. But to be very blunt and honest with all of you, it also reflects the level of concern that we have, because the degree of instability that has been experienced in Somalia has not only posed a challenge to the people and the lives of the people of Somalia, it also imposes a risk to the region, because we know that these risks can grow if they're not successfully addressed in one country. So that is the reason we are here. We are here because we care, and we're here because we're concerned. And that, I think, will lead to an effective partnership, provided it is, as I said before, coupled with the powerful realization on the part of all other governments that it is this government, the government of Somalia, that has to find the solutions and has to bring them into effect and make them work. And it is the people of Somalia, women and men, who have to be there to be supportive of that task. When we were making our constitution many years ago, we decided that the federal government was responsible for something called peace, order, and good government. And when we came to amend our constitution 40 years ago, we concluded that we needed a charter of rights and freedoms. This process took hundreds of years. If you look around the room and around the screen and look at the history of all the countries that are here, we've all gone through a lot of conflict, a lot of war, a lot of tragedy in order to get to some cases, a place of stability. It's taken even longer to get us to a place of stability and rule of law and human rights. So sometimes I think we make the mistake of thinking that we can snap our fingers and make it happen. And the reality is it's a slog. It's a hard journey. But it's a journey that starts with, as all journeys do, with the human footsteps. And I think we know that the people of Somalia are taking those footsteps. And we want to be very supportive of the people as we get to this better place where we have peace, order, good government, equality, human rights, inclusiveness, and above all, a respect for the power of unity and the dignity of difference. And it's combining those things together in one big soup pot that makes for a better country and a better constitution, but it's not easy. So Jama, if you could pass on to the Prime Minister our great thanks. Rolad, thank you so much for participating. Minister Hanifa, we appreciate your being with us. Friends, for sticking with us through another one of these sessions. It's been great sharing these discussions. I'm learning a lot every day. I very much appreciate colleagues here and in Capital for joining us. Thank you very much. Good to be with you. Merci beaucoup.
Thank you, Bob.
Cheers. Cheers.
Cheers. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you.
Merci, Monsieur l'Ambassadeur.
Thank you very much. Mahatsani.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all.
Have a good time, all of you.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Bye.
We'll see you in Somalia. See you in Somalia.
Welcome.
Mogadishu.
Please come down.
Please, we want to come. Abukar, thank you for being with us too.
الكبار